thrown into the mix, I'll let you know. From the Northern Cape, we've got Kenny Moemang. So there's our gentleman holding up the flag as well. From the Free State, I didn't mention Motla Khamang Gracie Tabate. So those are the speakers of the provincial houses.
Usually, for a joint sitting, we have about the 400 members of the two houses, the National Assembly as well as the National Council of Provinces. But obviously, for an event such as this, you have extra people coming in, the premiers, the speakers, and that's why obviously the National Assembly gets more chairs, gets more seats. Just to be able to accommodate everybody.
Yeah, this year, talking about invited guests, looking at the numbers, we've got about 1,120 guests that have been confirmed that will be joining this State of the Nation address. They've been invited. It was quite interesting to hear this morning during our broadcast, while we were speaking to the National Assembly Speaker, who said the minute she got the resignation letter from former President Jacob Zuma, the SMS was sent out to all of guests, inviting them, saying, right, State of the Nation address is taking place tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. That was sent yesterday at 11 o'clock in the morning. So this was a tight schedule and something that I think would be of interest to some of our viewers.
Of course. Now we do expect to have the judges and the judiciary making their way up. We understand, obviously, that the Chief Justice, Mogoeng, is already inside the National Assembly. Let's see who will be leading the judges' procession. Of course, it's, commentator's curse.
I know, as you said, he's already arrived, so we don't worry about him, but there he is, leading all of the other judges. Mogoeng made his way in, put his outfit on, and he is leading the rest of the judiciary as they walk up the red carpet.
It's also been a very interesting time for the judiciary, Leanne. I mean, last year, I think it was around about the 29th of December, when, the Constitutional Court handed down, once again, a very, very serious judgment relating to the National Assembly. And quite interestingly, the Chief Justice wrote the minority judgment.
Yeah.
If I can bring in a professor here, what does it signify when the Chief Justice writes the minority judgment in terms of the health of I see the professor.
I think it is healthy. It is healthy, that if the Chief Justice has another point of view and he accepts the decision of the majority of the justices, that he still feels that he needs to put his view forward. It was a perspective that was also relevant to be discussed in the forum. So we do have a very healthy judiciary. It's one of the things I think that we're all grateful for as South Africans.
Now, healthy judiciary, considering all of the events that we've seen leading up to tonight, would you characterize, the last couple of weeks as also, I suppose, a healthy democracy?
Well, it's extraordinary. I mean, the resilience of our democracy at so many levels, the freedom of speech, the role of civil society, the freedom of engagement of the opposition parties, the openness of the public debates, the role of the judiciary. It's all, we've gone through a really difficult test over recent times, and one doesn't want to become complacent, but one can't help feeling a little bit, really thrilled at the outcome. It's just been such a test for our institutions, and our institutions have proved incredibly resilient. It's a fabulous thing for a South African.
Do you think that the new president is going to engender an improvement or a strengthening of the institutions that support democracy, and that we're likely to see the start of that in his State of the Nation address?
Well, to the extent that he's able to, an obvious area would be the Chapter 9 institutions, which have been performing quite unevenly, but they're somewhat protected correctly under the Constitution, so there's a limit to the amount that he can engage in that. But there's no doubt that we can't be complacent about the resilience of our institutions, and we need to find ways to make sure going forwards that they remain really strong and that they can protect the people of the country from any kind of misrule.
Well, I think there's going to be a very busy time ahead for the judiciary as well, and quite a difficult time for those implicated in so many scandals that still have to be resolved in this country. I mean, there are cases, there are investigations. We're seeing the Hawks, we're seeing the SIU. I mean, we are seeing so much happening right now, and this is all going to be presented to the courts here in South Africa and the judiciary, hoping to get some finality on all of these allegations that have been made, especially around state capture and South Africans wanting answers.
And it's also quite interesting to, you know, obviously as we see the judges now taking their seats, to see them under the same roof with the EFF. Where yesterday, one of the big criticisms, and there we see the EFF clapping hands and applauding, obviously, the judges. Yesterday, one of the big criticisms of the EFF was that the sitting and the election of Cyril Ramaphosa as the new president is taking place under an illegal gathering, you know. Yet the Chief Justice was there yesterday and obviously presiding over the sitting, and now you know, we're about to have the State of the Nation address of the recently elected president. Chief Justices are there, or at least the Constitutional Court Justices are there, and the EFF is now, you know, applauding, obviously, the arrival of the Chief Justices. Prof, I don't know if you want to say something towards that, as to just what should we read into this? The EFF applauding, well, having yesterday.
I think it's a very healthy respect for our institutions. I think the EFF have, you know, used the judiciary on a number of occasions to get their points of view expressed or to engage in issues, and I think that they found, even though they may have disagreed with some decisions and with some processes, they found the institutions to be very fair and open. So I think it's a great thing that we're able to disagree but still respect.
All right.
Well, we're still waiting for the arrival of our new president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa. He should be arriving any minute from now, because it's almost 20 minutes before 7, so we should be seeing his vehicle arriving and that procession up the red carpet, and it's going to be quite a moment for him. And, you know, we could never downplay something as big as this moment for him, because, you know, it's something that I'm sure a position he's wanted to hold for a very long time, since the days of Nelson Mandela.
You know, there's the report that he was Mandela's chosen one. Now, I'm not sure, Prof. I see you nodding.
Very much so.
It's in the book. It's in the second volume of the Mandela memoir that he did indicate that he, you know, within the ANC there was discussion about who the deputy president should be, that he had indicated his preference for Ramaphosa, but he was persuaded by his colleagues in the ANC.
What specifically about Ramaphosa appealed to Mandela that much that he would want him to succeed him, or at least to be deputy president?
Well, he's got many obvious qualities. He's you know, as the leader of the Mine Workers Union, he was a, you know, tremendous leader. He led the biggest strike, successful strike in South African history. He then engaged in a very vigorous negotiations process, represented the ANC with colleagues, you know, very effectively. And, you know, there may have been a consideration for Mandela that the fact that he was of Xhosa origin, and later President Mbeki was also, that he would like to give, you know, a bit more of a spread in terms of, you know, to try to avoid any kind of concerns about you know, ethnic rivalries or tribalism or something like that. So that might have been a consideration of his as well.
I know that I was having a conversation on the red carpet with Madiba's grandson, Mandla Mandela, talking to exactly what you are saying right now, talking about the inclusivity of South Africans and the dream of this united South Africa, and wanting to not have it, you know, a tribal South Africa where everybody's included. And this is, I think, one of those moments. And he also went on to say that it's actually quite special that this is happening during the centenary of Nelson Mandela, and it happens in this particular year that Cyril Ramaphosa, his comrade, his close friend, his companion, is now taking over as the president. So it really is quite a moment, quite a memory.
One of the things that's also been mentioned about Mr. Ramaphosa is the fact that he speaks all 11 South African languages, you know, so no one can say that, you know, that they feel excluded, or they, you know, that they're not represented, because he can literally visit any home in our country and be able to converse with that specific family in their specific language. How important is that, Prof? How important is that relatability from the president to the people, and the people feeling that basically that they can see themselves in the president?
Well, I think it's very important. Obviously, you know, amongst our presidents, we've had presidents with a common touch. You know, President Mandela was, you know, he was constantly frustrating his security detail by going out and engaging with people. President Zuma, you know, obviously, you know, was outstanding at sort of engaging with ordinary people. President Mbeki, you know, being, you know, a very able leader in many ways, and an incredibly serious president in terms of policy implementation, didn't have that to the same extent. So I think that what people are hoping is that, you know, we find a president that I think that is able to, perhaps unusually, you know, in the sense President Mandela was more focused on building unity than on the technical policy issues. Perhaps President Ramaphosa will be able to span all those roles. In South Africa, the role of the president is unusually onerous, because he's the head of state and, you know, is the head of the executive. It's not that common to have that, but
I have to giggle a little bit to myself, because I think of late, I think that President Ramaphosa is also going to be a bit of a headache to the presidential security personnel, because he's also one who's taking walks and jogs on the waterfront. Now, this has happened, I think, 2 days in a row, where he has been spotted on the promenade here in Cape Town jogging. Now, one thing I have to give the president is a thumbs up to his fashion choices that have changed. Because when he first came out jogging with those stripy McDonald's socks, I think that was a wake-up call for him, that he best get himself some really good jogging clothes. And he seems to have those now. He was out with Trevor Manuel this week, and then this morning again, he was out there jogging by himself in this gorgeous tracksuit, an ANC shiny tracksuit, looking very, very suave. So, yeah, so I think, you know, that security personnel running after him as well, they need to keep themselves fit.
No, look, I'm very happy, of course, that the president has got someone advising him on his sense of fashion. You know,
it's a good thing. It's always a good thing.
He doesn't come anywhere near me. So,
well, you know, I think one thing before the arrival of our new First Lady, if being a woman and of being interest to me, I would like to reflect on her for a little bit, because I think, you know, it's the first time that we are having one First Lady in South Africa after 9 years, and that's a reality. We've had, you know, of course, we know that our former President Jacob Zuma had numerous wives, but this particular lady, Dr. Tsepo Motsepe, who we should be seeing accompanying our president, is also in her own right a very, very well-to-do and established woman. I mean, she's fantastic at what she does. Perhaps we want to elaborate a little bit.
Of course. Well, I mean, my issue is just, you know, that we are celebrating the centenary of Nelson Mandela, but we're also, or at least the ANC, is also celebrating the legacy of Mamu Albertina Sisulu. And I think our new First Lady is someone who, you know, who will carry forward the type of legacy that was, you know, brought forward by Mamu Albertina Sisulu.
So again, just paying our attention to the First Lady now of South Africa. She, of course, I'm sure you know quite well, the Motsepe family is part of that Motsepe family, and she is the older sister of businessman and mining magnate Patrice Motsepe. Her sister is Bridget Radebe, also a prominent businesswoman, and is married to the minister, the current minister in the presidency, Jeff Radebe. So Dr. Motsepe from Soweto, originally qualified medical doctor, and has a Bachelor of Surgery from the University of KwaZulu-Natal. So a very, very professional lady, Master of Public Health in Maternal Child Health and Aging from Harvard School of Public Health. So, I mean, besides that, she's also got a list of philanthropic activities that she's been involved in. So this First Lady of ours is something to be reckoned with. And again, a very strong, proud South African woman that I think we look forward to hearing a lot from.
Yeah, no, we will. One of the issues, Prof, you know, as we were talking earlier on, and about the priorities of the new president, is the issue of the economy. And part of that is the issue of land and the issue of land reform. We now know that, you know, the ANC has taken a resolution of expropriation without compensation. How do you think that the president will be able to navigate those waters?
Well, I think that the land issue is important to many of the members of the ANC, and that he's going to have to find a way to respond appropriately. You know, whether or not the ANC resolution will pass constitutional tests, whether it will be able to be translated into practical outcomes, it's difficult to say. But there are a lot of things that can be done about access to land that can be done within the Constitution really effectively. And we have found in recent years that a very small amount of the budget of government has gone into land redistribution and into and not a very great amount has gone into the development of emerging farmers from amongst black people who had been farmers in the pre-colonial period and were pushed off the land. So I think there's a lot of work that has to be done, whether it's done through direct land transfers, whether it's done through people in the former Bantustans getting firmer tenure on the land that they do have, the land that they farm. You know, there are a number of routes to addressing this hunger for the development of the agricultural sector.
All right. Thank you very much, Prof. I see you, Leanne. You keep on looking at your time.
Yeah,
and
indeed.
We're hearing the helicopters circling around. So
we're watching very closely because we hear these helicopters, the SABC or the Army helicopter that's circling above, and here comes the motorcade. This is, I suppose, the moment that we have been waiting for. We are now seeing that car driving down the road, and of course, it's one of those big. It's almost like we always dub it as something quite like a Pope-mobile, isn't it? Coming down full view, you can see into that car, but I can imagine the glass is very protective, isn't it?
No, very much, and also just a slight difference to previous years, or maybe even to last year, is that they're coming down Ruland Street, you know, which is a different entrance to what normally President Jacob Zuma had used, or even President Thabo Mbeki. I think the last time, it could have been even former President Nelson Mandela that had used Ruland Street to then come into Parliament. So once again, I think President Cyril Ramaphosa, you know, being very symbolic in what he does, following the same route that former President Nelson Mandela had once used to come into Parliament. You know?
That is beautiful. I think the symbolism in this is magnificent. Well, there we go. I think one of the first shots that we're actually getting, you can see him waving. There's his wife with him as well, waving at the crowds that have gathered on the side of the street. Also something that is so special. It's so important to involve South Africans, allow South Africans to be a part of this occasion?
You know, I think for me, obviously, because I wake up every morning and I come to Parliament, you know, and so this is my office, this is where I work, and all the stresses and the strains of Parliament. But one thing that never really escapes me is the importance of this day, you know, and just how just how special it is to actually wake up and come to Parliament every day. There are millions and millions of our country's people who only ever see Parliament on television, who see it in pictures, and I hope that the novelty of working and being based in Parliament, it never really wears off, you know. So.
And I think through the years it's got even more and more attention, perhaps sometimes for the wrong reasons, but I have a sense, and maybe I'm speaking from a personal perspective as well as you have. You know, I've always watched the State of the Nation and sort of, gone with emotions, but through the last couple of years where we've seen these State of the Nations turn into what some have described as a circus, and then realizing that the memory of what has happened in those or through those doors has shaped us and defined who we are now. And to not allow the process to move forward was, in a way, quite sad. So this evening, one hopes that we sort of see the years previously where the respect is given, and we see that bust of our former president Nelson Mandela staring over everybody and wanting exactly what I think we've wanted as well. Now, in fact, with looking at Madiba there on the screen, he in fact was the person who introduced the public participation component, where people are invited to come and witness this auspicious occasion. He wanted to be close to the people.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
He did. Professor, if I can just bring you in on this point that Leanne is talking about, internationally, what did the last 2, 3, 4 years of disruptions within of SONAs, what did it do to our image internationally?
Well, it's very damaging. I think it's not only those last couple, the SONAs themselves, but generally the relationships within government have led to a weakening of South Africa's position, I think, in Africa. I think the respect for South Africa's leadership in the rest of Africa was significantly damaged, and to some extent in the rest of the world. But I think it was probably most seriously felt in Africa, because Africans, study us very carefully, and they're very aware of the difficulties that we've been going through. So I don't think we've had nearly the force in African processes that we had in the past as a result of the weakened position of the leadership of the country.
So therefore tonight is quite crucial then, as to returning us to that place, Leanne, where we are once again seen as a beacon on the African continent and even internationally as to how we conduct ourselves.
And if I may bring in, during one of former President Jacob Zuma's comments was also saying, people from the continent ask me and are worried about our country because of the way that we're acting, particularly in the National Assembly and the visuals that are being shown not only on the continent but around the world. So we do hope that this is a change of tone, but again, this is yet to be seen, and I think we outlined that at the beginning of this broadcast, is you never quite know when it comes to the EFF and the disruptions. So that is that helicopter that Lukhanyo was referring to a bit earlier. It's hovering right above us. It's actually quite deafening, so it is the Army helicopter that's there. We should see it flying by as well. There's all of this that's going to be happening. A 21-gun salute, the President walking up that red carpet with that ceremonial military guard. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen. The door has opened, and our new President of South Africa is about to emerge.
What a moment it must be for him.
I think yesterday you could see the emotion on his face from when he was sworn in, but I think that this is a different kind of moment. This is where he knows that the country is depending on him. And there you go, our first glimpse of our new president on this day, the State of the Nation, Cyril Ramaphosa, making his way into that, or onto that red carpet and being welcomed by everybody. That is that public participation we were talking about, the public lining that carpet, the young students as well, that junior guard of honor to that parliamentary precinct, and of course to the end of the National Council of Provinces building. He will be welcomed, and he's accompanied as well by the National Assembly Speaker, Baleka Mbete.
Greeting the eminent persons there. There you can see the First Lady just behind him. I think South Africa expects quite a lot from President Ramaphosa, and I think also a lot also depends on him over the next 13, 14 months leading up to elections as to whether or not the ANC is returned to power. Prof, what are some of the key things that you think the president needs to urgently address, over the next 14 or so months, up until the end of term?
Well, the most important thing is that there's a rebuilding of trust within South African society. I think there's, the events over the last several years have meant distrust, disbelief, a lack of credibility, even a lack of legitimacy. In a situation where the president was severely challenged and didn't respond effectively to those challenges. So he has to rebuild trust in society, trust between Parliament, between the presidency, between the cabinet and the rest of society. And he has to rebuild trust amongst the people of South Africa for each other, because I think that suffered too.
All right, I think these pictures are very, very important right now, and I think that they can speak for themselves. But a moment where the president is going up the stairs accompanied by the Speaker of the National Assembly, his wife beside the Speaker of the National Council of Provinces, the chairperson, I beg your pardon, of the Parliament's National Council of Provinces, Thandi Modise, and of course they're making their way up to the front where the national anthem will take place, the gun salute will take place, and I think we let these pictures make history as they are going to.
New President Cyril Ramaphosa about to take the 21 gun salute. There we see President Ramaphosa walking into the National Assembly. In a few seconds, a few minutes actually, he will deliver his maiden State of the Nation address.
So many people talking about the beginning of a new era as we're witnessing what's happening here on this, the 16th of February 2018, and so many people hoping, watching with anticipation to see what it is. And Lukhanyo, you mentioned something quite interesting a little bit earlier, that there is a lot of eyes and responsibilities and hopes being pinned on the shoulders of this new president, and whether or not he can deliver, that's yet to be seen. But of course, it's not him alone. He needs a very, very strong team behind him, and those team members, I'm sure we will find out in the coming days. And you know, as much as we are watching here this auspicious occasion, I think next week is going to hold a lot of surprises for a lot of people.
Indeed, Leanne, indeed. But that's for next week.
Indeed. So we focus on tonight, and these pictures, these visuals are going to be plastered over the newspapers that are going to last for a very, very long time. And a lot of commentary coming from this moment in South Africa's history. And I think some positive commentary that South Africa of late has been missing out on, and hopefully regaining our spot as the leaders on the continent and one of the leaders in the world when it comes to not only our constitution, but also our leadership, our supreme leadership. And we now wait with bated breath to hear what it is the president is going to be focusing on to get us back to that position.
Speaker of the National Assembly, Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, President of the Republic of South Africa,
there will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Thank you. Please be seated. Honorable members, the President has called this joint sitting of the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces in terms of Section 84(2)(d) of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, read with Joint Rule 7(1)(a), in order to deliver the State of the Nation address to Parliament. I now call on the Honorable the President to address the joint sitting.
Speaker of the National Assembly, Ms. Balega Mbete, the Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Methandi Mudise, the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, and the Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP, Honorable Malema. Hey, Marwena Mar. Former President Thabo Mbeki, former Deputy President, Mr. F.W. de Klerk, Chief Justice Mogoeng, as well as all esteemed members of the judiciary who are here. Ministers and deputy ministers, premiers, speakers of provincial legislatures, chairperson of SALGA, and all executive mayors present, the heads of our Chapter 9 institutions, chairperson of the National House of Traditional Leaders, leaders of faith-based organizations, former Speaker of the National Assembly, Dr. Frini Jinwala, former Speaker of the National Assembly, Mr. Max Sisulu, invited guests, veterans of the struggle for liberation, members of the diplomatic corps, honorable members, fellow South Africans. It is for me indeed a great honor and a privilege to have this opportunity to address you all and indeed the nation on this, the State of the Nation address. This address should have been delivered last week, but was delayed so that we could properly and carefully manage issues of political transition. I wish to thank honorable members and the people of South Africa for their patience and for your forbearance. I also wish to extend a word of gratitude to former President Jacob Zuma, yes, I do wish to thank former President Jacob Zuma for the manner in which he approached this very difficult and sensitive process. I also wish to thank him for the service to this nation during his 2 terms as President of the Republic, during which our country made significant progress in several areas of development. I spoke to President Zuma yesterday, and we exchanged wonderful, and he wished us well for the holding of this SONA. Fellow South Africans, in just over 150 days from now, the people of the world, and indeed our people in this country, will unite in celebrating the 100th anniversary birth of Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. It is a day on which we as South Africans will remember the life of one of the most remarkable leaders this country, and indeed this continent and the world has ever known. We will have an opportunity to recount Madiba's long walk to freedom. We will also have an opportunity to reflect on his wisdom, his unfailing ability, his abiding compassion, and his essential integrity. We have dedicated this year, 2018, to his memory, and we will devote every action, every effort, every utterance to the realization of his vision of a democratic, just, and equitable society. Guided by his example, we will use this year to reinforce our commitment to ethical behavior as well as ethical leadership. And in celebrating the centenary of Nelson Mandela, we are not merely honoring the past, we are building the future, and particularly the future that Nelson Mandela envisaged for South Africa, our country and its people, the future that has its roots in the Freedom Charter. We are continuing the long walk he began to build a society in which all may be free, in which all may be equal before the law, and in which all may share in the wealth of our land and have a better life. We are building a country where a person's prospects are determined by their own initiative and hard work, and not by the color of their skin, place of birth, gender, language, or income, or their parents. Ek wil dit nou mooi in Afrikaans sê. Ons bou 'n land waar 'n persoon se vooruitsigte deur eie inisiatief en harde werk bepaal word, en nie volgens die kleur van hulle vel, geboorteplek, geslag, taal of inkomste van hulle ouers nie. This year, we will also celebrate the centenary of another giant of our struggle, Umama Albertina Nontsikelelo Sisulu. Through her amazingly remarkable life and outstanding contribution, she defined what it means to be a freedom fighter, a leader, and a diligent and disciplined servant of our people. Through the leadership qualities that Umama Albertina Sisulu displayed, put on display for all of us to see, she embodied the fundamental link between national liberation and gender emancipation as well. As we mark her centenary, we reaffirm that no liberation can be complete and no nation can be free until its women are also free. We honor this son, Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, and this daughter, Albertina Nontsikelelo Sisulu, a daughter and a son of the African soil, in a year of change, in a year of renewal, in a year of hope. We will seek to honor them not only in word, but in deed as well, particularly in direct action towards the achievement of their shared vision of a better society in our country. We should honor Madiba by putting behind us the era of discord, the era of disunity, and the era of disillusionment that had somehow engulfed our country. We should put behind us the era of diminishing trust in public institutions and weakened confidence in our country's public leaders. We should put all the negativity that has dogged our country behind us, because a new dawn is upon us, and a wonderful dawn has arrived. It is a new dawn that is inspired by our collective memory of Nelson Mandela, but it is also inspired by the changes that are now unfolding in our country. Wonderful changes that everybody can see. As we rid our minds of all negativity, we should reaffirm our belief that South Africa belongs to all who live in it. For though we are a diverse people, we are one nation. There are 57 million of us, each with different histories, different languages, different cultures, experiences, views, as well as interests. Yet we are bound together by a common destiny that is defined by our South Africanness. For this, we owe much to our forebears, people like Pixley Kaisa Kaseme, Charlotte Maclerke, Chief Albert Lutuli, who understood the necessity of the unity and harmony of all the people of this great land, South Africa. We are a nation at one. We are one people committed to work together to find jobs for our youth, to build factories and roads, houses and clinics, to prepare our children for a world of change and progress, to build cities and towns where families may be safe, productive, and they may be content. We are determined to build a society defined by decency and integrity that does not tolerate the plunder of public resources nor the theft by corporate criminals of the hard-earned savings of ordinary people. While there are many issues on which we may differ, on these fundamental matters, we are all at one. We know that there is still a lot that divides us. We are divided by history, we are divided by where we live, we are divided by our gender, we are divided by a whole range of things. We remain a highly unequal society in which poverty and prosperity are still defined by race as well as by gender. We have been given, all of us gathered here, members of this parliament, yes, indeed, all others who are also visitors here, and many of our people out there, we have been given the responsibility as South Africans to build a new nation, to confront the injustices of the past and the inequalities of the present. We are called upon to do so even as we face difficult conditions. The state that we are in as a nation is that while poverty declined significantly following the democratic breakthrough of 1994, we have seen reverses in recent years. Poverty levels rose in 2015, unemployment has gone up and inequality has persisted. For several years, our economy has not grown at the pace needed to create enough jobs so that we can lift our people out of poverty. Public finances have been constrained, limiting the ability of government to expand investment in economic and social development. Despite these challenging conditions, we have managed, and this we managed working together to achieve progress in improving the lives of our people. Even under conditions of weak growth, our economy has created jobs, but not at the pace required to absorb new entrants into the labor market. This means that as we pursue higher levels of economic growth and investment, we need to take additional measures to reduce poverty and meet the needs of the unemployed in our country. Since the start of the current parliament, our public employment programs have created more than 3.2 million work opportunities. In the context of widespread unemployment, these opportunities continue to provide much needed income and relief. They also provide work experience and training to many South Africans who find opportunity to participate in them. We have also taken steps to reduce the cost of living for our people. The cost of living for our people has kept on rising on all levels. Government's free basic services program currently support more than 3.5 million indigent households across the length and the breadth of our country. More than 17 million social grants are paid each month, benefiting nearly a third of our population. These grants have alleviated a great deal of poverty amongst our people, and they are deeply valued by our people. We know, however, that if we are to break the cycle of poverty, we need to educate the children of the poor. We have insisted that this should start in early childhood. Today, we have nearly 1 million children who are participating in early childhood development facilities. This is significant. We are seeing improvements in the outcomes of our basic education system. The matric pass rate increased from 60.6% in 2009 to 75.1% last year. That is phenomenal progress. There are currently almost 1 million students who are enrolled in higher education, up from 500,000 in 1994. That represents progress. As we enter a new era, we are determined to build on these achievements as we confront the challenges we face and accelerate progress in building a more prosperous and equitable society. We have seen a moderate recovery in our economy and a broader sustained recovery in the global economy. Commodity prices have improved and keep on improving. Many of our firms, many of our mines are seeing orders, increased orders coming in. The stock market has risen. The rand has strengthened, and there are early indications that investor confidence is on the rise. We have taken decisive measures to address concerns that have been raised by a number of stakeholders about political instability, and we are committed to ensure that there is policy certainty as well as consistency in a number of areas where there has been policy weakness and uncertainty. There is a greater sense of optimism amongst many of our people. Our people are hopeful about the future, and one sees it as one goes around. Business confidence among South African companies has improved, and it keeps improving. Foreign investors are looking anew at opportunities in our country. When we had the occasion, Madam Speaker, Chair of Provinces, when we had occasion to be in Davos, the World Economic Forum, we were able to interact with a number of international investors. And they said they're beginning to look at South Africa anew, with a new prism, and they can see that change is on the way in South Africa, and that is what they find attractive. There are some international banks who have identified South Africa as one of the hot emerging markets in 2018, and that is welcome news to our ears. Our task as South Africans is to seize this moment and not to pour cold water on this moment. Our task is to seize this moment of hope, this moment of renewal, and to work together to ensure that it makes a meaningful difference in the lives of our people. This year, we will be initiating measures to set the country on a new path of growth, employment, and transformation. We will do this by getting social partners in our country to collaborate in building a social compact on which we will create drivers for economic recovery in our country. We have to build further on the collaboration with business and labor to restore confidence and to prevent an investment downgrade once more. Tough decisions will have to be made to close our fiscal gap. We have to stabilize our debt and restore our state-owned enterprises to much better health. At the center of our national agenda in 2018 is the creation of jobs, especially for the young people in our country. We are going to embark on a number of measures to address the unemployment challenge. One of the initiatives we will embark on is to convene a job summit within the next few months to align the efforts of every sector and every stakeholder behind the imperative of job creation. Now, this is a response to a number of stakeholders in the labor movement and business who have said to us as government, what is needed to immediately and urgently address the challenge of jobs is to have a job summit where many South Africans will put their heads together and come up with solutions. The summit will look at what we need to do to ensure that our economy grows and becomes more productive, that companies invest on a far greater scale, and that workers are better equipped, and that our economic infrastructure is also expanded. We will expect this summit, yes, to come up with practical but urgent solutions and initiatives so that they can be implemented immediately. We will make a major push this year to encourage significant new investment in our economy. To this end, we will organize an investment conference in the next 3 months, targeting both domestic and international investors to market the compelling investment opportunities to be found in our country, and there are many such opportunities. As part of the many initiatives that we are going to take, we are going to address the decline over many years of our manufacturing capacity, which has deeply affected employment and exports. We will seek to re-industrialize on a scale and at a pace that draws millions of job seekers into the economy. We are going to promote greater investment in key manufacturing sectors through the strategic use of incentives and a number of other measures that government has at its disposal. To further stimulate manufacturing, we will forge ahead with the localization program through which products such as textiles, clothing, furniture, rolling stock, and water meters are designated for local procurement. We have already spent 57 billion rand on locally produced goods that may have been imported from a number of countries, thus creating jobs in other countries where we import goods from. Special economic zones remain important instruments that we will use to attract strategic foreign and domestic direct investment, and also to build targeted industrial capabilities and to establish new industrial hubs throughout our country. Those hubs have already been identified. A number of them are already in construction. The process of industrialization must also be underpinned by transformation. Through measures like preferential procurement and the Black Industrialist Program, we are developing a new generation of Black and women producers that are able to build enterprises of significant scale and capability. We will improve our capacity to support Black professionals and deal decisively with companies that resist transformation, and we will use competition policy to open up the market up to new Black entrants and invest in the development of businesses in our townships as well as in our rural areas. Radical economic transformation requires that we fundamentally improve the position of Black women and our communities in the economy, ensuring that they are owners, they become managers, they become active participants in the economy, and they become producers, and in the end, some of them may well become financiers as well. Our most grave and most pressing challenge is youth unemployment. It is therefore a matter of great urgency that we draw young people in far greater numbers into the productive economic activity of our country. Young South Africans will be moved to the center of our economic agenda. They are already forming a greater proportion of the labor force on our infrastructure projects and are the primary beneficiaries of programs such as the installation of solar water heaters and the war on leaks. We are taking steps and measures to involve our young people in economic activity because it is there that we face a great challenge with regard to unemployment. We continue to draw these young people in far greater numbers into productive economic activity through programs such as the Employment Tax Initiative, working in partnership with business, organized labor, and community representatives. We are creating opportunities for young people to be exposed to the world of work through internships, through apprenticeships, through mentorships, and through entrepreneurship programs as well. Next month, we will launch the Youth Employment Service Initiative, which will place, yes, you ask how many, which will place unemployed youth in paid internships in companies across the economy. Together with our partners, we have agreed to create 1 million such internships in the next 3 years. If we are to respond effectively to the needs of young people, it is essential that they themselves articulate their views, their needs, and they are able to engage with government at the highest level. To this end, I will therefore be establishing a youth working group that is representatives of all young South Africans to ensure that our policies and programs advance their interests. Infrastructure investment is key to our efforts to grow the economy, to create jobs, to empower small businesses, and provide services to our people. We have invested heavily in new roads, power stations, schools, and other infrastructure. And some of our projects are taking time to get off the ground and to enhance all the efforts that we are making, I will assemble a team to speed up implementation of new projects, particularly water projects, health facilities, and road maintenance. That team will be set up and do most of the work. We have learned valuable lessons from our experience in building all the new infrastructure which will inform our way ahead. We will focus on improvements in our budget and monitoring systems, improve the integration of projects, and build a broad compact of infrastructure with business and organized labor. Mining is another area that has massive unrealized potential for growth and job creation in our country. We need to see mining as a sunrise industry rather than a sunset industry. We will revitalize our mining sector. With the revival in commodity prices, we are determined to work with mining companies, with unions and communities to grow this sector, to attract new investment, to create jobs, and set the industry on a new path of transformation and sustainability. This year, we will intensify engagements with all stakeholders on the mining charter to ensure that it is truly and effectively an instrument to sustainably transform the face of mining in South Africa. By working together in a genuine partnership, which is underscored by trust and a shared vision, I am certain that we will be able to resolve the current impasse and agree on a charter that both accelerates transformation and grows this vital sector of our economy. Processing of the MPRDA Amendment Bill through both Houses of Parliament is at an advanced stage, with an indication by Parliament that the bill will reasonably be finalized during the first quarter of 2018. The bill, once enacted into law, will entrench existing regulatory certainty, provide for security of tenure, and the advance of socio-economic interests of all South Africans. We are extremely concerned about the rising fatalities in mining, particularly this year. We call on mining companies to work together with all stakeholders to ensure that mine accidents are dramatically reduced this year. One mining fatality is far too many. Ultimately, the growth of our economy will be sustained by small businesses, as is the case in a number of countries around the world. It is our shared responsibility to grow this vital sector of the economy. We will work with our social partners to build a small business support ecosystem that assists, that also nourishes and promotes entrepreneurs. Government will honor its undertaking to set aside at least 30% of public procurement to small and medium enterprises, to cooperatives, and to township and rural enterprises. We will also continue to invest in small business incubation, because it is through the incubation process that we have been able to see small and medium enterprises mushrooming throughout the country, supported through these incubation processes. We encourage big business to do the same and find ways on incubating small businesses and giving them maximum support. The establishment through the CEO initiatives of a small business fund, which currently stands at 1.5 billion rand, is an outstanding example of the role that the private sector can play in helping to develop small and medium enterprises. Government itself is finalizing a small business and innovation fund targeted at startups. We want to be able to support startups so that those South Africans who are entrepreneurially driven should be able to get support from government as well. We will reduce the regulatory barrier for small businesses. Now, we've been talking much about reducing the regulatory barrier, and I want to make sure, I'm going to make sure that this does become a reality, because I continue to meet people in small and medium enterprises, and they keep telling me about the burden that they have to bear as small, medium enterprises, which disempowers them from growing their businesses. We're also working to expand economic opportunities for people with disabilities in our country. Among other things, the Small Enterprise Finance Agency, SEFA, has launched a scheme to develop and fund entrepreneurs with disabilities called Amavulindlela Funding Scheme. When we come to agriculture, sena tsa temo ke tsona tse bohlokwa le ho feta. Ka hobane ke moo batho ba rona ba tla fumanang menyetla e metle ya hore ba kene kgwebong ena ya tsa ho lema. Ke moo re shebileng hore re ka kgona ho aha mesebetsi. Bane ba National Planning Commission ba ile ba re ho rona re ka kgona ho aha mesebetsi e lekanang milione ha re tla ho ena ya agriculture. Agriculture has made the largest contribution by a significant margin to the improved growth of our economy in the second and third quarters of 2017. This year, we will take decisive action to realize the enormous economic potential of agriculture. And as agriculture requires land, as agriculture needs land as a basic resource, we will accelerate our land distribution program not only to redress a grave historical injustice, but also to bring more producers into the agricultural sector and to make more land available to our people for cultivation. We will pursue a comprehensive approach that makes effective use of all mechanisms at our disposal. Guided by the resolutions of the 54th National Conference of the Governing Party, this approach will include the expropriation of land without compensation. We are determined that this process of restoring land to our people should be implemented in a way that increases agricultural production, that also improves food security and ensures in the end that agriculture becomes a growing sector of our economy. Government will therefore undertake a process of consultation to determine the modalities of the implementation of this resolution. We make a special call on the financial institutions in our country so that they become our partners in mobilizing resources to accelerate land redistribution program, as increased investment will be required as we generate more growth in agriculture and treat agriculture as a job creator and a sunrise sector of our economy as well. Tourism is another area which provides our country with incredible opportunities to quite literally shine. Tourism currently sustains 700,000 direct jobs and is performing better than most other growth sectors in our economy. And there is no reason why we can't double the size of employed people in tourism. There's just no reason. We have the most beautiful country in the whole world, and we are the most hospitable people in the whole world. And there's no reason we cannot grow our tourism industry. South Africans, and I call on all South Africans to open their hearts, to open their rondavels as well, to open their arms and welcome visitors from all over the world. Let us make South Africa the real hub of tourism in the whole world. This year, we will enhance support for destination marketing in key tourism markets and take further measures to reduce regulatory barriers and develop emerging tourism businesses. We call on all South Africans to join us in this effort as we grow our tourism industry. Our prosperity as a nation depends on our ability to take full advantage of rapid technological change. The fourth industrial revolution is upon us, and some are even beginning to talk about the fifth industrial revolution. This means that we urgently need to develop our capabilities in the areas of science, technology, and innovation. Our SKA project, where our scientists, where our young people are excelling just beyond any imaginable limit, is already demonstrating to all and sundry across the world that South Africa and South Africans are well attuned to innovation and to technology. That is an area I would like to see us exploit so that we can grow our economy. We will soon establish a Digital Industrial Revolution Commission, which will include the private sector and civil society to ensure that our country is in a position to seize the opportunities and manage the challenges of rapid advances in information and communication technology. The drive towards digital industrial revolution will be underpinned by the availability of efficient networks. We will finalize our engagements with the telecommunications industry and other stakeholders to ensure that the allocation of the spectrum reduces barriers to entry, promotes competition, and reduces the cost to consumers in our country. When it comes to international matters, South Africa has acceded to the tripartite free trade area agreement, which brings together SADC, our own region, COMESA, and the East African Community. The free trade area will combine markets of 26 countries with a population of 625 million people. It will open market access opportunities for South African export products. It will contribute to job creation and the growth of South Africa's industrial sector. Negotiations towards the Continental Free Trade Agreement are progressing at a brisk pace, and it is expected that the framework agreement could be concluded soon. South Africa will this year take over the chair of the BRICS group of countries and will give priority to the promotion of value-added trade and intra-BRICS investment into productive sectors. On the 1st of May this year, we will introduce the first national minimum wage our country has ever had. This historic achievement, a realization of one of the demands of the Freedom Charter, is expected to increase the earnings of more than 6 million working South Africans and improve the living conditions of households across the country. The introduction of this minimum wage was made possible by the determination of all social partners to reduce wage inequality while maintaining economic growth and employment creation. It stands as another example of what is possible when South Africans engage in meaningful dialogue to resolve differences and difficulties and problems that would have been thought to be intractable to resolve. To ensure greater coherence and consistency in the implementation of our economic policy and to ensure that we are better equipped to respond to the changing, continuously changing economic circumstances, I will be appointing a Presidential Economic Advisory Council that will assist us and advise us in crafting our economic policy. This council will draw on the expertise and capabilities that reside in labor, that reside in business, that reside in civil society, as well as academia. The country remains gripped by one of the most devastating droughts in a century, which has severely impacted our economy, which has also negatively impacted our social services and agricultural production. The drought situation in the Western Cape, as well as in the Eastern Cape and Northern Cape, has been elevated to a national state of disaster. This gives the national government the authority to manage and coordinate our response nationally with the support of all our provinces. This will also ensure that we also heighten integrated measures to support the provinces that are hardest hit. We are looking at activating the necessary extraordinary measures permitted under legislation. I commend the people of Cape Town and the rest of the Western Cape for diligently observing water-saving measures. We call on everyone in the country to use water sparingly as we are essentially a water-scarce country that relies on this vital resource to realize our developmental aspirations. On the 16th December last year, former President Jacob Zuma announced that government would be phasing in fully subsidized free higher education and training for poor and working-class South Africans over a 5-year period. Starting this year, free higher education and training will be available to first-year students from households that have a gross combined annual income of 350,000. The Minister of Higher Education and Training will lead the implementation of this policy, while the Minister of Finance will clarify all aspects of the financing of this scheme during the budget speech next week. In addition to promoting social justice, an investment of this scale in higher education is expected to contribute to greater economic growth, to also help in reducing poverty, to reduce inequality, and to enhance the earnings of families and to increase the competitiveness of our economy. Government will continue to invest in expanding access of quality education and improving the outcomes of our public schools. The Funza Lushaka Bursary Program plans to award 39,500 bursaries for initial teacher education over the next 3 years. In a historic first, from the beginning of this year, all public schools have begun offering African languages. Also, what is significant is the implementation of the first National Senior Certificate Examination on South African Sign Language, which will be offered to deaf learners at the end of 2018. The Accelerated Schools Infrastructure Delivery Initiative, ACIDI, program continues to deliver modern facilities to our schools, particularly in the rural areas and underprivileged urban areas across the length and the breadth of our country, with at least 187 schools being completed to date. The program will complete all outstanding projects by the end of the next financial year. Social grants remain a vital lifeline for millions of our people living in poverty. We will urgently take decisive steps to comply with all directives of the Constitutional Court, and I want to personally allay the fears to all our people of any disruption to the efficient delivery of this critical service, and I will take action to ensure no person in government should undermine the implementation deadlines that have been set by the court. We will finalize work on a permanent public sector-led hybrid model, which will allow a set of public and private sector service providers to offer beneficiaries maximum choice, access, and convenience. This year, we will take the next critical steps to eliminate HIV from our midst. By scaling up our testing and treating campaign, we will initiate an additional 2 million people on antiretroviral treatment by December 2020. We will also, yes, cheers. We will also need to confront lifestyles, diseases such as high blood pressure, diabetes, cancers, and cardiovascular diseases. In the next 3 months, we will launch a huge cancer campaign similar to the HIV counseling and testing campaign that we launched. This will also involve the private sector, as we need to mobilize all resources in our country to fight this disease. The time has now arrived to finally implement the universal health coverage through the National Health Insurance. The bill is now ready to be processed through government and Parliament will have the bill submitted to it in the next few weeks. Certain NHI projects targeting the most vulnerable people in society will commence in April of this year. In improving the quality of life of all South Africans, we must intensify our efforts to tackle crime and to build safer communities. During the course of this year, the community policing strategy will be implemented with the aim of gaining the trust of the community and to secure their full involvement and cooperation in the fight against crime. The introduction of a youth crime prevention strategy will empower and support young people to be self-sufficient and become involved themselves in crime-fighting initiatives. A key focus this year will be the distribution of resources to police station level. This will include personnel and other resources to secure capacity and experience at the level at which crime is most effectively combated. In recognizing the critical role that NGOs and community-based organizations play in tackling poverty, inequality, and related social problems, we will convene a social sector summit during the course of this year. Among other things, this summit will seek to improve the interface between the state and civil society and also address the challenges that NGOs and community-based organizations face. Building growth, development, and transformation depend on a strong and capable state. It is critical that the structure and the size of the state is optimally suited to meet the needs of the people and ensure the most efficient allocation of public resources. We will therefore initiate a process to review the configuration, the number, and the size of national government departments. Now, many of our state-owned enterprises are experiencing severe financial, operation, and governance challenges. And this has impacted on the performance of the economy and has placed a great deal of pressure on the fiscus. We are going to intervene decisively to stabilize and revitalize state-owned enterprises. The recent action we have taken at Eskom to strengthen governance, root out corruption, and restore the financial position is just the beginning of the processes that we are going to embark on. Government will take further measures to ensure that all state-owned enterprises fulfill their economic as well as their developmental mandates. We will need to confront the reality that the challenges at some of our SOEs are structural, that they do not have sufficient revenue streams to fund their own operations. These SOEs cannot borrow their way out of their financial difficulties, and we will therefore undertake a process of consultation with all stakeholders to review the funding model of our SOEs as well as other measures. We will change the way that boards are appointed so that only people with expertise, experience, and integrity serve on these vital positions. We will also remove board members from any role in procurement. I want to repeat this one. I want to repeat it because in a number of our SOEs, we have found that board members tend to get involved in operational matters up to procurement. So we will remove the participation of our board members from procurement and work with the Auditor General to strengthen external audit processes. As we address challenges in specific companies, work will continue on the broad architecture of state-owned enterprises to achieve better coordination, oversight, and sustainability. This is the year in which we will turn the tide on corruption in our public institutions. The criminal justice institutions have been taking initiatives that will enable us to deal effectively with corruption. The Commission of Inquiry into State Capture, headed
Order, honorable members. I can tell the President's voice is getting tired. Now you are competing with him. Please proceed, Honorable President.
The Commission of Inquiry into State Capture, headed by Deputy Chief Justice Judge Raymond Zondo, is expected to commence its work shortly. The Commission is critical to ensuring that the extent and nature of state capture is established, that confidence in public institutions is restored, and that those who are responsible for any wrongdoing should be identified. Now, the Commission itself should not displace the regular work of the country's law enforcement agencies in investigating and prosecuting any of the acts of corruption. We must fight corruption, we must fight fraud and collusion, as well as in the private sector, with the same purpose and intensity that we want to fight it in the public sector. We must remember that every time someone receives a bribe, there is someone who is prepared to pay it. We will make sure that we deal with both of them in a very effective manner. We urge professional bodies as well as regulatory authorities to take actions against members who are found to have acted improperly and unethically as well. This requires that we strengthen law enforcement institutions and that we shield them from any external interference or manipulation. We will urgently attend to the leadership issues at the National Prosecuting Agency Authority to ensure that this critical institution, is stabilized and able to perform its mandate unhindered without any fear of favor or prejudice. We will also take steps to stabilize and strengthen vital institutions like the South African Revenue Service. We must understand that tax morality is dependent on an implicit contract between taxpayers and government that state spending provides value for money and is free from corruption. At the request of the Minister of Finance, I will shortly appoint a commission of inquiry into tax administration and governance of SARS to ensure that we restore the credibility of the service and strengthen its capacity to meet its revenue targets. Our state employs some 1 million public servants. The majority of our public servants serve our people and our nation with diligence and commitment, and they need to be applauded for that service they give. However, we know the challenges that our people face when they interact and interface with the state. In too many cases, they often get poor service or no service at all. We want our public servants to adhere to the principle of batupili, of putting our people first. Lava batirelako ba itirelako hinkwerhu. Hi lava ku ri loko ba itirela ba tiva ku ri vanhu ba lava ku ri ba va tirhela kahle. Ba endla swilo swa khwatsi swi vonaka ku ri bona vanhu lava ba tirhelaka government ya hina ba tirha mitirho ya kahle swi vonwa hi vanhu hinkwavo. We are determined that everyone in public service should undertake their responsibilities with efficiency, diligence, and integrity. We want to instill a new discipline to do things correctly, to do them completely, and to do them timelessly. And we want our public servants to be agents of change. During the course of the next few months, I will visit every national department to engage with the senior leadership of all our government departments to ensure that the work of government is effectively aligned. I will also find time to meet provincial and local government leaders to ensure that the state in its entirety responds to the pressing needs of our people. Fellow South Africans, I believe that our country has entered a period of change. While change can produce uncertainty, while change can also produce anxiety, it also offers us a great opportunity for renewal, for revitalization, and also for progress. Together, we are going to make history in our country. We have done it before. We have done it before, and we can do it again. Bonded by our common love for our country, our love for our people, resolute in our determination to overcome the challenges that lie ahead, and convinced that by working together we will build the fair and just, decent society to which Nelson Mandela dedicated his life. As I conclude, allow me to recall the words of the late, great Bra Hugh Masekela. In his song, Tumamina, he anticipated a day of renewal, of new beginnings. He sang, I wanna be there when the people start to turn it around. Mary Julius, watswenya en ngongo utoswenya chote. I want to be there when the people start to turn it around, when they triumph over poverty. I want to be there when the people win the battle against AIDS. I want to lend a hand. I want to be there for the alcoholic. I want to be there for the drug addict. I want to be there for the victims of violence and abuse. I want to lend a hand. Send me. I haven't finished.
Order.
As I conclude, we are at a moment in the history of our nation when the people, through their determination, have started to turn our country around. We can envisage the triumph over poverty. We can see the end of the battle against AIDS. Vatu baashu bakouri bakotoda shango helinoni lichiba shango liswa lichiba shango labudi lichiba shango linela do disera batu bote baashu zabudi. Now is the time where all of us should lend a hand. Now is the time for each one of us to say, South Africa, send me. Now is the time for all of us to work together. Sifikile isikhathi sokuthi sibambane izandla, sisebenze sonke, sibeke iNingizimu Afrika phambili. This is now the time where we should honor the memory of Nelson Mandela to build a new, better South Africa for all our people. Now is the time. Thank you very much.
Order. Thank you very much. Order. Order. Order, members. Order. Rea leboga. Thank you, Mr. President. Order, members. I wish to make an announcement. Honorable members, please be reminded that the debate on the State of the Nation address will be debated on Monday, the 19th at 10 o'clock in this chamber, and that the reply to the debate by the President takes place on Tuesday, the 20th in the same chamber. To 1400 hours. Order, members. After I have adjourned this joint sitting, members and guests should please remain at their places until the procession has left the chamber. The guests in the gallery should remain seated until the ushers have indicated that the doors are open. The procession, led by the Sergeant-at-Arms and the usher, will leave the chamber in the following order: the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, the President, the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, the Deputy Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, the Acting Secretary to Parliaments. This concludes the business of the day. This joint sitting is adjourned.
Sithi Phakama Ramaphosa.
Africa, whether the investors will still come to South Africa to really invest and to create jobs, because if you have listened to the president, everything depends whether we're going to get new investors. For instance, he's going to establish an industrial revolutionary sort of council, but he spoke about the fourth and the fifth revolution when it comes to that. But in fact, at this moment, we still don't have the change to digital broadcasting. So a lot of things has been said. The Freedom Front Plus will give the president a chance to prove to the people of South Africa that he was serious and that what he said will culminate into practice. We are not happy with the expropriation of land without compensation. That in itself is negative for the economy, and that's why I say that it depends, and we will have to see whether investors really come to South Africa. So the proof of the pudding is in eating the pudding.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Pieter Groenewald, the leader of the Freedom Front Plus. I think now, Leanne, we're going to cross to the other side of the precinct. I believe Manelisi is standing by.
Bulelani, thank you very much. I am joined by the Reverend Kenneth Mishwe, who is, of course, the leader of the African Christian Democratic Party. Reverend, your take, first of all, on the maiden address by new President Cyril Ramaphosa.
It was a very good speech. The atmosphere in the House reminded me of the days of Tata Nelson Mandela. He touched the right buttons, what people of South Africa wanted to hear, particularly the concern that we had about crime and corruption. He spoke like a person who's going to be ruthless when it comes to corruption, and we really, really appreciate that. The size of government was one of a concern to the ACDP because money has been wasted in a lot of staff members who were duplicating their duties. So he's going to re-look at the size of government, so we are expecting the size of government departments to be reduced. And obviously we are very happy also to hear him talk about ensuring that young people who are unemployed, that they are going to get employment, that much is going to be done, and that South Africa will become the tourist hub of the world. Indeed, we have a beautiful country that should be the hub of tourism, and we are grateful that that is what he is aiming at, to make our country the hub of tourism. And indeed, we are grateful that the new day is dawning for South Africa. A new day is dawning.
All right, there you can have it, Reverend Kenneth Mishwe. Obviously very inspired by the maiden address of new President Cyril Ramaphosa. Let me now cross you back live to my colleague Manelisi Dubase.
Welcome back. We're still continuing with political reactions right here on the steps of Parliament. Joining me now is the Deputy Secretary General of the ANC, Mamuchesi Duarte. Thank you so much for joining us. The President Cyril Ramaphosa's maiden speech, SONA. Your take on it?
I think that firstly, it's really a step up for the country. He raised many issues that, of course, we as the governing party are extremely happy with. The 1 million jobs for young people with social partners, That is very important. At the level of apprenticeships, I think that's really what he's meaning. Secondly is the question of the economy. Played a huge part in that speech. Was 90% of it was about the economy. And looking at small to medium business enterprises, removing all the red tape. I was very pleased about that. I think that's going to make a huge difference to small people who have a little money and have to fill in so many forms and go through so many different processes. I think that's important. I like the fact that he said he will personally be going to various departments to make sure they do their jobs. I think that's very positive. It shows a president who's determined to make the country work.
All right, thank you so much. That is Jesse Duarte, the Deputy Secretary General of the ANC. As you can hear from behind, ANC MPs are singing, but now we're going to cross to the other side of the precinct. Manelis is standing by.
Thank you very much, Lucanio, and I'm here with the leader or the chief whip of the NFP, Professor Nhlanhla Kubisa. Prof, quite a very good speech, breath of fresh air today, isn't it?
It is indeed, Manelis, a breath of fresh air. It's like soon we'll be in Canaan. The president touched on a plethora of issues that are affecting our country. And of course, the issue of youth unemployment as the NFP to us that comes uppermost. And he said that is going to be dealt with. The issue of corruption and ridding our country of state capture, getting into the grip of it, dealing with our state-owned enterprises, and of course, free higher education and dealing with basic education as well. We believe these are basic issues, and ensuring that there is stability and lack of uncertainty in our country, and ensuring that policy is consolidated. These are the main issues that society has been crying about. Now South Africans are waiting to see whether these things are implemented. But quite honestly, this is a speech that covered so many issues. The president spoke like a person who has been there and has seen it. And now he needs the entire collective, all of us as South Africans, to ensure that these issues are dealt with once and for all. We expect him to deal with corruption, nip it in the bud, the issue of state capture, deal with the issue of education, state-owned enterprises, and also the issue of land. Our people need land, and these are the issues so that they can plow. Dealing with SMEs, they get money, and startups are assisted. It's a whole lot of issues which are specific and speaking directly to the marrow of our society.
Thank you very much, Professor Nhlanhla Kubisa. This time, let me go back to my colleague Bulelani Phillips on the other side.
Stuart, you must just cue me now. I can't hear. All right, we're now joined by the Commander-in-Chief of the EFF, Mr. Julius Malema. The maiden speech of President Ramaphosa. Your take as the EFF?
Well, unfortunately, we have to apologize for what looks like just a sort of cable fault with a mic there with that Bulelani right on the floor there. But as you can see, a buoyant mood, jovial mood right there in the house, outside on the steps. I think the key point that comes out is that South Africa is facing change and that we all have to change. What a wonderful message brought there by the President, his maiden State of the Nation address, SONA 2018. President Cyril Ramaphosa, of course, it would have been very nice to get that reaction from Julius Malema. He referred to him 3 times during this speech. Let's go back to the precinct right now.
African politics. And I think as the South African Communist Party, we've campaigned very hard from inside of the alliance to deal, in fact, we were the first party to develop the concept of state capture. and the terrible period that we've been through. And I think as the Communist Party, we are very proud of the contribution we've made with many others, including journalists, by the way, in bringing about this moment where we have a new president who's clearly committed himself to fighting corporate capture of the state, to dealing with corruption in the state, but not just dealing negatively with actually also mapping a way forward and reuniting South Africa.
You happy?
I'm very happy. Obviously, there are many challenges that lie ahead, and I think that the president has outlined some of those challenges. But we're extremely pleased with what has happened over the last few days.
All right. Mr. Cronin, thank you very much. That was Jeremy Cronin talking to us in his capacity as a member of the SACP's Political Bureau. Let me now cross you back to my colleague standing on the other side of me, Umanelisi Dubase. Thank you very much. We are now with the leader of the PAC, Mr. Mbinda. Mr. Mbinda, a speech that covered quite a wide range of issues. What was your take after all?
Yeah, I must say he covered quite a lot, and I'm not sure if he will be able to walk the talk because, you know, he is coming from a rot system, because the entire system of the ruling party is corrupt and it is rot. Let's hope that he will walk the talk. And if you listen more especially to the issue of land, I must say I'm not happy when he is talking about revitalization of agriculture and make land available, and is talking about redistribution of land. But the problem that we have as PAC is that how do you redistribute land if you have not dealt with Section 25 of the Constitution? Because that property clause, Section 25, is actually protecting the interest of those that are in control of the wealth. He dealt with education, but now we do not want segregation, because it's just talking about first years that will be getting, you know, free tertiary education for those families that are earning about 350,000. I mean, what do you do now after you have completed your first year? Are we not going to be faced with the same situation? This is not what we want when we talk free education. We mean free education from primary to tertiary level. And then we also expect at least those that are postgraduates at least to be given in-service training, more especially in the South African National Defence Force, because there are so many departments there when they can be, you know, exposed or given some technical expertise. In dealing with the state-owned enterprise, there was more emphasis, more especially on corruption. And if really he will walk the talk, I must say those that were, you know, stealing, more especially the cabinet, I feel very sorry for the cabinet ministers, even for the board members. But I don't know how he is going to deal with the policy direction, because before you change delegation of authorities and tell board members not to be involved in procurement, there are delegations of authorities, there is Public Finance Management Act. I don't know, I mean, that is why I'm saying there was quite a lot of rhetoric which will be very, very difficult for him to implement, even if you look at the people that are surrounding him, because he will not do that alone. But when you listen to him speaking, you could say that most of the issues are really coming from the bottom of his heart. But the problem now will be the implementation of some of these issues that he is saying, looking at the policy direction, because without changing the social system, the policy direction of the ruling party, there is no way that he will be able to effectively implement what he is promising the nation. I was happy when he spoke about, addressing unemployment, involving youth. Because what is important in his speech was more about the summits, because he had deadlines. He will be having quite a lot of summits in dealing with some of the issues that are facing people. And I would say at least that one is a first step in the right direction, because people need to converge. They need to talk about what they need to do and what they want to achieve. But to be honest with you, I don't have any hope, and I don't even think South Africans must have hope in what he is saying.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mbinda of the PAC. We are now joined by General Bantu Olomisa, the leader of the UTM. General, you have always been talking about economic CODESA. The president talks about job summit. Your take on that?
Well, we welcome the statement of intent by President Cyril Ramaphosa. There is no doubt that he listened to what I was saying to him yesterday, wherein I said there is a need for the government to consult the people of South Africa and that they must not work alone. However, this long list which he has tabled today will depend on the attitude of his administration, meaning the DGs and the departments as well as the cabinet which he will be working with. There's a lot of things he has narrated which would need a thorough program of implementation. People are sick and tired of the ANC's empty promises of the past, and I hope that we are not going back to the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, General Bantu Olomisa. And now I will go back to my colleague, Bulelani Philip.
Steps of Parliament. I've got two guests with me. Firstly is the leader of the IFP, Chief Mangosuthu Buthelezi, who's going to be speaking to us, pardon me, about the State of the Nation address. Your take, are you happy with the direction planned out?
I think that the President himself summed up what his message to us when he said this is the era of renewal, of change, renewal and hope. I think that sums up what he said. Because in all the years I've not been here, we've had very erudite and very good speeches by our heads of state. But I think I admire the President for unpacking exactly what he's going to do. And then he threw the ball at all of us, whether one is ANC, whether one is IFP, whether one is EFF, whether one is DA. He threw the ball at all of us by saying that he's challenging each one of us to cooperate and forget everything, because our country has really been in a mess. And of course we know that this country has been sunk by corruption. And he went back, to that theme over and over again and stated exactly what he wants to do, to eradicate it.
All right, thank you so much.
Very excited.
Thank you so much, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, giving us some reaction on the State of the Nation address. I believe earlier on we did have a problem with sound. We're now going to speak again to the Commander-in-Chief of the EFF, Mr. Julius Malema. Mr. Malema, once again, thank you so much for joining us. Your take on the State of the Nation address?
Well, the President presented the State of the Nation very well, without plans. The President has got no plans on how is going to change the lives of our people. We've heard of commissions, we've heard of summits, we've heard of seminars, including the inquiries. We welcome the issue of expropriation of land without compensation. We welcome the reducing of government departments. There were too big and too many for nothing. We also welcome the fact that he has recommitted to allow law enforcement agencies to operate without any interference by politicians. And we are happy that all criminals who are in his organization are now going to be prosecuted for the crimes they've committed against the people of South Africa. We hope he will not develop a cold feet and then retreat from that commitment, because we are here to hold him accountable. That's why today we gave him chance. We said to him at the beginning when he was panicking and at the level he was uneasy,
We said to him, relax, brother, read your speech, make your commitment to the people of South Africa, let them be known, so that when we take you on, the people know why we are taking you on. So we want peace in this parliament. We want superior logic to prevail. That's why we allowed President Ramaphosa to present his speech without any problem. We only had a problem with the delinquent in the past. The delinquent is gone now. Superior logic will be the order of the day in this parliament.
Thank you so much, Mr. Julius Malema, the CIC of the Economic Freedom Fighters. Leanne, I'm going to go back now to the other side of the precinct where Lukhanyo Kalata is standing by.
Bulelani, thank you very much. I am now joined by the Minister of Basic Education, Mamu Enji Muteka. Ma'am, a lot said in the speech by the new president, particularly on the education of early childhood development and also the education of young South Africans as a means of getting children out of poverty. The responsibilities that fall on you, what will that entail?
No, it's really re-energized us, because if we're going to be talking about economic revival, economic growth, the base thereof is going to be skills. To make sure that we have a skilled workforce to be able to take us to that trajectory. Without skills, without education, they are going to have a hollow commitment to economic growth, economic development, entrepreneurship, and all those things really depend on very solid basic skills. On ECD, we know, it's just that what was nice about the speech, it really tackles things that we've been grappling with, and perhaps some of them not reaching finality around. And I think with the president lifting them up, it re-energizes and forces us to go back, because the NDP itself emphasizes the centrality of ECD. And again, with him raising it again, it really re-energized to say we have to go more aggressively to deal with the issues that we've agreed or things that we know are necessary to take us to where we want to go in terms of poverty, development, underdevelopment, and all sorts of social ills that come because of poverty, but also of underdevelopment.
All right. Ma'am, thank you very much for that. Thank you. That was Umamu Enji Muteka. She is, of course, the Minister of Basic Education, basically saying how re-energized she is by this speech by President Ramaphosa and the fact that he highlights issues that they had been dealing with. Let me now cross you back to my colleague, Manelisi.
Thank you very much, Lukhanyo. I'm now joined by the leader of the IEC, Mr. Lulama Chaisa. Mr. Chaisa, quite a very broad-ranging speech. What's your take afterward?
It has been a great speech indeed. I'm sure each and every South African feels very much relieved today. It's a good turnaround strategy. You know, Cyril Ramaphosa just touched each and everything. I was just looking, what is he going to say now to the challenge of unemployment, challenge of poverty, and challenge of inequality. He has just touched on all those. So it's a great speech indeed. And I hope now this man has just come up to unite the people of South Africa. So he has brought about peace, he has brought about unity, he has brought about the stability. So he is promising a lot. We hope now that all what he has been saying is going to be implemented.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chaisa. That is Mr. Lulama Chaisa, the leader of the IEC. I'm now going straight to Leanne in the studio. Leanne?
Bulelani, thanks very, very much. And Lukhanyo also. The guys doing a great job there on the carpet. We'll cross to them as soon as they do get anybody else that passes their way. And, of course, Manalisi Dubasi. Now, we have got with us here, seated in the chair with us, is Abraham Patel, the Minister of Economic Development. Minister, thanks for popping in. Good to see you.
Very welcome and great to be here, Leanne.
How are you feeling?
I think I sat there in a bench and I looked across at the members of parliament and people in the public gallery, and South Africans were buoyed by the speech.
Yeah.
It was visionary. It was truly talking about a new dawn, not as a note in a speech, but setting out a vision for the country. It made us proud again. It brought dignity back to governance, to what we do, to the public service, and it reminded all of us that we are here to serve our people. But it was also a great call for partnership For ordinary South Africans, the President outlined that there will be summits, and those summits are the opportunity where we forge a partnership, where everybody brings something, young people, investors, trade unions and workers, young entrepreneurs who have ideas to change the products that we use, all of them. We want to harness that energy. But also, I think, the focus on renewal of public institutions. The President spelled out action against corruption, because corruption is corrosive for economic growth and for inclusion. It diverts resources. And then I think what was really important in the speech is that it set out a vision, a tone in which governance must take place.
Minister, thank you very, very much. I am going to wrap up with you because we're saying goodbye to our SABC2 viewers at this point who have been watching this inaugural State of the Nation address by our new President Cyril Ramaphosa. And one thing I must say is the atmosphere here this evening is absolutely incredible. And also having Tumamina being quoted in the speech by the late, great Hugh Masekela has to be one of the most incredible ways to not only honor Hugh Masekela, but to honor the people of South Africa and basically, in a nutshell, say we are here for all of you. Well, I'm going to say goodbye to all of you. Thank you very, very much for watching. Remember, this broadcast does continue on Channel 404. But SABC2 viewers, God bless you and enjoy the rest of your viewing this evening. All right. Let's continue our broadcast, though, here on SABC News, Channel 404. And let's go back to get some more reactions. And Manelisi, I believe we're coming to you. Who you joined by?
The President's spoken about, trying to tighten the auditing processes. I think you're impressed with that line of the President.
Very impressed, Manelisi, because, in the history of State of the Nation addresses, you seldom hear the President mentioning an Auditor General's role in that context, which means that the issues that he has in mind about what we must do are intricately connected to the ultimate objective that he wants to drive. So we have always been part of this journey, and we are super excited on behalf of all of us in the office that we get this level of positive recognition in order to contribute to the greater goal that the President has articulated today. So I think it's going to increase the level of focus on our side, because it also means that the level of attention and expectation is even higher at the highest level in the land. So clearly, I think our guys have already started making sure that they gird their loins to make sure that they are found in the ready when the President knocks at our doors the next time around.
Thank you very much. That's the Auditor General, Mr. Kimi Makwetu. And now I will go back to my colleague, Bulelane Phillips.
Well, this State of the Nation address has attracted the interest of the tripartite alliance partners. And with me now, I'm joined by the Deputy Secretary General of the SACP, Mr. Solly Mapaile. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Does this State of the Nation address inspire any hope for you guys?
Of course, there's a great hope that has inspired us from President Ramaphosa, and I think the rest of South Africa should be inspired. He actually showed what a president is. He touched on all key sectors with an inspirational message across the board, restored the nationhood of all South Africans by believing in themselves, in their collective efforts. He represented the embodiment of all our beings in this country. He touched on every other sector, including the most depressed sectors, the unemployed, the pensioners, and his commitment to action is what really inspires us, and his commitment to fight against corruption and corporate capture and all other initiatives that he has outlined. You could see that this is a man in action, and I think it will inspire our country to regenerate itself again, to be in action to fight against poverty, to actually attain the prosperity that our liberation fighters such as President Nelson Mandela and Mama Sisulu had fought for.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Solly Mapaile, the Deputy Secretary General of the SACP. And we're now going to cross to the other side of the precinct. Manelisi is standing by.
Thank you. you very much, Bulela. And I'm now joined by the Minister, Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development. Deputy Minister, the President emphasized on the department, especially with issues regarding the NPA and others. Your take?
Maybe just to clarify, my name is Andries Nel. I'm the Deputy Minister for Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, so it's local government. But I'm
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and sorry about that.
No, not at all. But I think the message, we are one government and we are united around those messages that the President was conveying. So we're equally comfortable to talk on all of those issues. Indeed, the President was emphasizing the need for us to unite as a nation around the key tasks of confronting poverty, inequality and unemployment. He was emphasizing the need to work together, but he was also emphasizing the need to combat the cancer of corruption, which holds back the nation in achieving our objectives in all three of those fields. What he was outlining very clearly is that steps are already being taken to combat corruption. He was referring to the recent actions of our law enforcement agencies. He was talking about the establishment of a judicial commission of inquiry to look at the question of state capture. He was also making an appeal to the nation to stand together and to combat corruption not only in the public sector but the private sector. The message that he sent out clearly was that for there to be corruption, there must be a corruptor and a corruptee. For a bribe to be paid, a bribe must be offered. So yes, we need to strengthen our law enforcement agencies by appointing the correct people there, by ensuring that they operate independently without fear or favor, but also as citizens, we need to organize ourselves to condemn corruption and wherever we find it, to tell each other that those things are wrong and we mustn't engage in them, and work with our law enforcement agencies.
Mr. Nel, thank you very much, and I apologize once again. That's Mr. Nel, Andries Nel, the Deputy Minister of COCTA. Now let me go back to Leanne in the studio. Leanne.
All right, thank you very, very much. We'll go back to the reactions in a short while, and I do know that Lukhanyo is standing by with Minister Lindiwe Zulu, so we'll be talking to her in a very, very short while. But I haven't got your opinions as yet, because, I mean, I know that we sat here during the entire speech, you were making notes, but what stood out for you the most?
Well, I was struck that, you know, when President Mbeki was recalled and President Motlanthe took over, he really continued with the program of government. Now, what President Ramaphosa has done is that he's talked about some of the continuing programs of government that are important, but he's made some really significant breaks with the policies of the existing government. So, to the way that he talked, for example, about re-engaging over the mining charter, that seemed to be a very strong signal that he's reopening doors that seem to have been closed. And the way that he's establishing so many forums, the Youth Forum, the Job Summit, the social compact which he talked about. He's developing a lot of new activities to re-engage with the people of South Africa and to set a new program going forward. So it's really quite a significant break compared with the previous time a recall happened.
I mean, it was really quite impressive to hear some of the things that were said, some of the things that people have been asking for a very long time. I bring up the size of cabinet. I bring up the amount of MPs that we've got. I mean, when we look at what our cabinet looks like, I mean, we're sitting with what, 74 ministers and deputy ministers. This is unprecedented. There was a definite clue in there that this is going to be reduced.
Definitely. He talked about a capable state. He talked about streamlining the state and making it more effective. There's no question that the most effective governments are governments where functions are combined into a smaller group of ministries. Most parts of the world, you don't have so many ministries. Ministries tend to grow when presidents are buying allies, And, you know, more and more people come into the cabinet, more and more people come into deputy minister positions. It's political, it's not for the efficiency of government.
Yeah.
So it is very, very welcome.
Yeah, I must say, as that was being spoken about, we saw that camera zoom over a couple of the ministers' faces, and I don't think they were too happy with what was being said. The reactions from them was, it was quite telling, to say the least. We'll continue our conversation in a short while. We're going to go back to Lukhanyo now. I think he is joined by the small business minister. Lukhanyo, over to you.
Welcome back. We are continuing with reactions here on the steps of Parliament, taking the views of business. Joining me now is Khanki Matabane, who is the CEO of the Black Business Council. So thank you very much for joining us. Is there anything as the Black Business Council that you're taking out of this State of the Nation?
Thank you very much for having us. What an inspiring speech. This speech has been one of the most important speeches, I think, since democracy. It raises the hopes of the people. It's actually inspiring. We're very, very excited, and we think the president is going to revive the economy and create the jobs that are needed there. So we also like the fact that the president has emphasized the issue of transformation, that in all that we are going to do, in all the programs, in everything that we do, transformation will be at the core and the center to make sure that the black people play the significant role in the economy as they're supposed to do, as the majority of the people in the country. So we're very, very excited.
And pronouncements around procurement and that being destined to black business?
The issue of the 30% is a policy that has been approved. We just need proper, serious, sustained implementation. Because if you implement that, you're going to make sure that every procurement of more than 30 million upwards, 30% of that goes to small businesses, which majority of them are black. So that is going to give black people an opportunity to grow their businesses.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Khanki Matabane, who is the CEO of the Black Business Council. We're going to cross now to the other side of the precinct. Manelisi is standing by.
Right where you are? Sure.
All right, thank you so much. Coming back now with more reaction, Mr. Musi Maimane, the leader of the DA. Your take on the speech?
What was important was the fact that the president acknowledged the fact that young people are unemployed and there are too many left out. What for me was worrying is that the president promised bold plans but didn't deliver anything. It seemed like it was more of the same. It was a historical plan from Jacob Zuma, and instead he promised more summits. What South Africans are desperate for is they want immediate action. And so there are a number of areas where it's contradictory to say you can expropriate land without compensation and stimulate agriculture. It seems contradictory that in fact you can say that in certain instances that the president was speaking about, how do you keep some cabinet ministers who have been there, who have not helped? Already in the economics cluster we've got 6 or 7 ministers. We need bold and immediate change. And so I really look forward to engaging the president on this issue, because I felt the speech needed more plans and didn't seem to produce immediate action.
If you were in his shoes, what would you have liked or included in your speech?
A reduction in tax for manufacturing. He should have been bold enough to announce the fact that on immigration, how do we ensure that people can gain, there's proper registration of people in the country so that people have their freedoms guaranteed for them, but we can look after our citizens. We wanted to ensure that there's an abandonment of the nuclear deal, which is a very expensive exercise. The idea about speaking about how do we help education, especially township education, and stop teachers from being appointed by SATU. These are then the bold issues that make sure that in fact our young people can find more work. And then he announced a whole program on NHI, which we've become very clear it's an unaffordable plan that no one can finance. So next week it will be another bold pronouncement without any financial plan.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Musimaimane, the leader of the official opposition, the Democratic Alliance. For more reaction, we cross to Manelisi on the other side.
Thank you very much, Bulelan, and welcome. One of the issues the president touched on is the biggest crisis we're facing with right now, drought, especially here in the province where we are. And joining me now is one of the role players in trying to deal with this matter. Xolani Sotache is the chief whip of the ANC in the city of Cape Town. The president said very well about the drought in the Western Cape and appreciating the people of the Western Cape for saving water. What more steps are you doing to avoid what you call 0-1?
Well, we appreciate the fact that this matter now has been escalated to national level, where national government is going to be hands-on in terms of coordinating and also direct resources in making sure that we preserve water. So what we are doing here at our level, we are making sure that we communicate with the communities and also to come up with bylaws that will really make sure that people do save water, and also the issues of desalination plants. We have agreed that we should really go to that particular direction and also come up with other mechanisms where we have to make sure that we repair the infrastructure that we have, because the infrastructure that we have is ailing. Water leaks, I think the president also spoke on those issues, that there must be war on leaks, because if we do not look after our infrastructure, it's one of the contributing factors. So we really appreciate the kind of commitment that national government is giving to the crisis that we are faced with in the Western Cape.
Would you want a state of emergency be declared on this crisis?
Well, since now national government has taken over the issue of coordination, and I think I will leave that to national government after assessment that could be made, and then they would be able to make a determination. But you could sense that really the president is taking this matter of the drought very serious, and one of the concerns that we have at this level is that if you leave it to local level on its own, there might be elements of making profit out of the crisis that we are faced with. Now there is going to be a strict coordination in terms of people doing exactly what is expected from us as government.
Mr. Sotache, thank you very much for your time. And let me right now go back to Leanne for the meantime.
It's lovely to be getting the responses from everybody that's streaming out. And I must say, a little bit earlier, just as everybody walked out, it was one of those most incredible scenes where I haven't seen political parties standing together and singing. And I have to tell you, even the EFF joined in the chorus of dancing and singing. So it was something that we haven't seen in years. We really haven't. Prof, a couple of other things I think we need to highlight and have a look at. One thing was the social grants. I mean, we cannot ignore what was said about social grants, and that will be paid timeously in time, and there will be no delays. And that was big.
He commits himself personally to making sure that it happens, and that anybody in government who stands in its way will be dealt with, effectively, he said. So the very, very strong statement. Clearly the inaction and the obfuscation and the blocking that's happened over the last several years for establishing an appropriate system is going to come to an end. It's quite a challenge because the Constitutional Court judgment requires action in the next couple of months.
Yeah.
So, you know, I hope he's got his ducks in a row, but it's a commitment that he's made.
It is a very big commitment, and also the other thing which we can't ignore is that the talk of the board members on state-owned enterprises and excluding from procurement. I mean, that is a major statement to have been made. Again, trying to root out corruption in every which way.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's something that has to be acted on very quickly. It is inappropriate for board members. They should never have become involved in procurement in the first place. Very, very inappropriate blurring of the lines between the roles of executives and boards and the relationships between executive and board members. So I hope that he is able to act very quickly and that the rot in the public enterprises is turned around and reversed. We've had to do it before, and I think we can do it again. I was actually on the board of Denel when we were making a loss of about 1.7 billion, and we managed to turn it around to a profit, a small profit, by, with a really well-led board led by SABC at the time. It can be done. We can fix it.
Yeah. All right. Let's go back to get some reactions now. Bulelani, I think we're coming back to you. I beg your pardon, Manalisi, I think we're coming back to you now. So who is your guest?
Thank you very much, Leanne. My guest is the Minister of Trade and Industry, Mr. Rob Davis. Mr. Davis, the President touched on matters of industrialization, matters of growth and investments, strictly on your portfolio. Your take on it?
Well, I think that, yes, he did. He mentioned the absolute centrality of us industrializing, reindustrializing our country, and some of the important policy tools that we need to be deploying, including the incentives, including the localization programs, the investment environment, and some of the trade issues. So he was touching on our portfolio, but I think that more important than that was that the President really gave us an indication that we've turned a corner. That there's a mood of optimism born, I think, of the indication that we're now addressing a number of the problems that have been bedeviling us and confronting us. The management of the state-owned companies, the fraud and corruption, the state capture issue, now being decisively dealt with. And I think that all of this is fueling an environment in which there's much greater optimism. I was on the visit to Davos, and I noticed as well that foreign investors were looking at the possibilities of increasing their presence in South Africa, at the real willingness to engage with the opportunities that we have. Earlier today I was at the launch of the Isuzu plant down in Struendale in Nelson Mandela Bay, and again I think we saw an attitude of optimism among investors, which I think what it does is it creates a much better environment for us to move ahead with a number of the programs which we've been trying to move ahead with and have had some success over the last few years. But I think we've got a much better environment to significantly accelerate the impact of those programs, and then by create more jobs, reduce inequality, reduce poverty, and confront some of the very, very real challenges as well as opportunities that arise from the new digital industrial revolution, which is on our doorstep.
Minister Davis, thank you very much for your time. And right now I'm going back to my colleague, Bulelani Phillips. Bulelani?
All right, thanks. Welcome back. Now for more reaction, we are joined by Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba. Political direction has been given by the President. I'm sure you must be relieved that at least when you deliver your budget next week, you know where you're going.
Not only relieved, I'm excited at the narrative that came out of the State of the Nation address. The President, as you correctly say, gave us a very clear directive as to the direction we need to take, in a way setting the entire context and framework for what should go into the budget, so that the budget is not only about the economic outlook, the fiscal framework, the division of revenue, but it also focuses on certain steps that are going to reignite growth in the economy and get the economy going. The most important thing for us is to ensure, as we said in the medium-term budget policy statement, is to ensure that we create jobs, we revitalize the economy, reignite the growth, so that South Africa's economic outlook can be at the same level as our other emerging market peers behind whom we are trailing at the present moment. So we need to boost business confidence. I think the President's speech did exactly that, to boost business confidence. In no less than 4 times, he spoke of the need for private sector partnership with government, which underscored the importance of pulling our resources together, harnessing all our muscle to reignite the growth and ensuring that we achieve inclusive growth.
Now, the one huge question that people may be asking, that free higher education policy, is that giving you sleepless nights? Are you going to find money to fund it?
I think by now you should expect that we have made up our minds as to how we are going to deal with it. The directive was clear from the moment President Zuma made the announcement last year. The president of the ANC reiterated the fee-free higher education policy at the January 8th statement. And so all along we've been trying to find ways to fund the fee-free higher education policy. And so at the budget next week we will outline how that is going to be done. As I say, the decision has been taken already. The most important thing for us is to implement this decision. We must now move away from the question, how is this going to be funded and so on, and focus on its implementation so that the intended beneficiaries of the program actually do benefit from it. Because at the end of the day, this is one of the most decisive interventions that our democracy could make to secure our country's future. Because an investment in young people is an investment into the future of our country, the future of our people. The generations yet to be born will benefit from this decision. We need to break the cycle of poverty, and the only way to do that is by ensuring that the children of the poor and working classes also have access to higher education, to developing their skills and talent so that they can make a contribution to the development of our country.
Thank you so much, Mr. Malusi Kikaba, the Minister of Finance, giving us an outline of how far he is with compiling the budget and also the associated costs of free higher education. We'll now cross to the other side. Manelis is standing by.
Thank you very much, Bulelane. We are now joined by the Secretary General of the ANC, Mr. Ace Makashule. Secretary General, thank you very much for
interview SABC.
Thank you so much.
You have been interviewing me,
again. What's your take on the President's speech? He touched on a wide range of issues. What's your take on it?
I think the speech is setting the positive mood. It's marshalling all South Africans, black and white, young and old, together, all stakeholders, to think and prioritize South Africa. Because South Africa is a wonderful and beautiful country, but he has emphasized the issue of radical economic transformation. He focused on issues of poverty, inequalities, and unemployment. And the youth are at the center. Rural areas, townships, a center in terms of infrastructure. Since 2009, we have been focusing in urban centers. We have been building bridges. And so we must go to our towns so that there is peace and prosperity for all South Africans. And we have marshaled everybody, young and old, intelligentsia, academics. I think that's what South Africa wants. We must go back to the days where Oliver Tambo was marshalling all of us, organs, rudimentary organs of people's power. And I think the President here has revived that mood of making sure that these rudimentary organs of people's power play their role in society.
Secretary General of the ANC, thank you very much for your time, and let me now take it back to Leanne. Leanne?
All right, thank you so much. We'll start wrapping things up here at Parliament. You can see that things is quietening down. People are beginning to leave now, and we'll just wrap up our discussion here and talk. Let's talk about the Finance Minister. Let's talk about this free education that was mentioned, the tertiary free education. What do you think he can come up with to fund this?
Well, they're going to have to find the money to fund it, Leanne. I don't think there's any choice in that. It is a commitment that the ANC has, and this is a commitment not to free education for everyone, but to free education for the poor. Cyril Ramaphosa tonight said it'll be for first-year students starting this year. So it's a plan that we rolled out over a period of time. So I think it's being managed as well as it can at the moment. Treasury would obviously have already found the money, but have had to make cuts elsewhere in order to be able to fund that program for this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to ask a big question now, and I'm not sure we know the answer. Do you think that Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba will deliver the budget on Wednesday?
My gut tells me that he will. I think that Cyril might hold off on a major cabinet reshuffle until after that. I think he recognizes that it may just be a little bit too soon to have a big change such as that before Wednesday.
Won't that also be telling of him as a president, though? I mean, you know, he's done the right thing so far, and unfortunately, the finance minister does come with baggage, and standing up there delivering our budget for the next year is a risk.
I think that you've touched on it. It's the optics of it, because the content of the speech will be very similar regardless of who delivers it.
Absolutely.
But the optics of it is important, and Gigaba doesn't have the kind of respect that one would expect from a finance minister, especially one where you're trying to, to get the international investment community back on board. So I think that is a problem, but it's a really difficult balancing act for President Ramaphosa.
It is going to be a difficult one, and I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb and say I also think it's going to be one of those moments again where you'll see the EFF, the DA, and everybody causing chaos in the House, and that I think could be that moment.
Well, I think there'll be some reaction to Gigaba. We know that the EFF always respond to Gigaba in particular, but I think they've set their stall out and said, no, we're going to hear you out and we're going to hold you to the promises that you make. So land redistribution went down well with the EFF today. Free education has gone down well with the EFF. Yeah. So there's enough there for them to begin to engage with.
Listen, what also went down really, really well: state capture. Going through the judiciary, everything and every commission will go through and you know, hopefully prosecuted. I mean, this is something that's been promised to everyone.
Well, I think the key institutions that we've been concerned about is the National Prosecuting Authority and the Revenue Service, and he touched on both of those today and says that we will do something about both those key institutions because they're key to restoring public confidence in our democratic system of government.
Yeah. Also SOEs. I mean, this is something that he has vowed to get right, and that's going to be a big task.
Because if he's going to be able to deliver on his promise of jobs, the SOEs are going to have to provide many of those jobs, and they're going to be run efficiently to be able to do that. So that's going to be a big challenge for this Ramaphosa government.
Yeah. Now, the big challenge also means that they need a very strong minister in that position as well. Now, when we look at public enterprises, I mean, it's, you know, we can pretty much tell that is going to be one of those ministries that's going to be replaced. And there's word about town that the man that might take that job is former Finance Minister President Godin.
It's, you know, he's demonstrated already in the Public Enterprises Portfolio Committee inquiry that he's got his finger on the pulse of what's happening at these SOEs. And so that would be a very, very sensible choice in order to help to fix the problems at state-owned companies.
Yeah, I mean, if I may be so bold as to ask you some other predictions. I know that, I suppose this isn't really the time to be talking about it, but in a way it is, because I think a lot of clues were given during the talks, the State of the Nation today, that big changes are ahead of us.
I think so. I think there's a lot of dead wood in cabinet, to be perfectly blunt.
Yeah.
He's committed to reducing the size of the national executive, cutting down a number of ministries, and we hope to see that happen quite soon. But yeah, I think a number of ministers are going to be in the firing line. We think of people like Mosebenzi Zwane, Bathabile Dlamini, Faith Mutambi, Lynn Brown. I think those ministers will not be sleeping well at the moment.
Yeah. As a matter of interest, I mean, was Bathabile Dlamini actually inside the National Assembly? Did you see her?
I couldn't see from where I was sitting inside, unfortunately, so I'm not sure if she was there.
Yeah, I mean, we were looking out for her, so we didn't get to see her, but please, I'm not going to say she wasn't there. I'm not actually too sure about that. But again, I mean, there were cameras that were panning over some of the faces that were sitting there, and they looked particularly worried, knowing that, you know, this could be that time where things are changing and things are going to end quickly.
The protection that many of those ministers had in the past for their underperformance is no longer there, and President Zuma provided them with that protection in the past. Yeah. They're not going to have that any longer. They're going to have to account. And I think one of the things, the takeaways of tonight, is that the era of mediocrity in South African public life is over. This is about delivering now and putting people in charge, as President said tonight, putting people in charge who can actually do the job.
Yeah. Just finally, one thing we need to talk about is education and some of the changes at the schools, and introducing the official languages at all schools. This is long overdue.
Absolutely, it should have, as you say, should have happened a long time ago. And if we're going to be serious about, you know, about nation building,
and transformation,
talking about nation building, but if we don't do these simple things in our schools,
yeah.
You know, we're not going to achieve those goals. So I think it's an important statement. As you say, long overdue, but something that needs to be implemented soon.
Yeah. Listen, I've thoroughly enjoyed this evening, and I think a lot of people have as well, purely because it's been refreshing. There's been a lot said, and we just now need to see this all coming through and being made into reality, because even the opposition party saying the same thing. They've given the State of the Nation the respect it deserves, but now it's a matter of making this all implemented. Thank you for talking to us. Always a pleasure having you and your expert opinions, and for everyone else that's been a part of this broadcast, and our reporters that have all been standing on the red carpet, and my co-host for tonight, Lucanio Kalata, who is standing behind me, I think, or he's disappeared. I can imagine the wind is so strong out there. He's probably been blown away. But also to Bulelani Phillips, Manalisi Dubasi, thank you very much. And for the entire team that's been working tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure that this is brought to you no matter how short notice it was. And I do hope that you've enjoyed this broadcast. This has been an historic one, and we plan to bring you many, many more of these. God bless you and go well. Bye-bye from Parliament.
Corruption both in the public and the private sectors needs to be combated.
Where there are clear cases of wrong that has been done, that must commence immediately.
Something is being done about corruption in our
currency, even although it's strengthened dramatically after the ANC's recent elective conference, could conceivably go stronger yet.
He had the soul that would not be for sale.
Stay tuned to Your World for your final news roundup, Monday to Sunday at 21:30.
Hello and welcome to Your World on SABC News. I'm Tabile Ngwato. Thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at news making headlines.